Stands here.
Based on what? Why would you say this is made? Have you seen its maker?
No, I know. I get where you're going to, but you don't have to see like always if it's there. You don't have to see it. I get it.
Good. So the world is there, just like the tripod. The world is around us.
Yeah.
The planets, the stars, the galaxies.
Gravity.
Yeah,
You see it, but it's there.
exactly.
I get it.
Then how are we then saying no one made all this? Just like if I said no one made this camera and the tripod. If I said, how do you say no one made it? You should say, I'm certain someone made it.
Yeah, that's true. I'm certain that somebody made all of this.
Then you're not an agnostic.
No, but I didn't make any effort to like go in the Bible or really make some.
You don't need to go in the Bible to understand that. When you observe the universe, you know that the universe has been made by someone other than itself.
Yeah.
The universe didn't make itself. The universe could not have been made by nothingness. So something or someone would have made it. This is not agnosticism. You are already a theist. You are already a believer that there was someone higher in power and authority and majesty has made this world, this universe. You just need to know who it is or what it is. Yeah? So that's the journey of finding out what indeed or who indeed is our creator. This is not agnosticism. This is trying to understand which concept of theism is true. There are many.
What about the fallacy of composition? How do you?
What is the fallacy of composition?
That a small that you include the same thing, different examples. Yeah.
I'm not using the argument of composition. I'm simply saying if something exists now, there cannot be a time in the past where there was absolute nothingness. Because absolute nothingness cannot make anything.
I agree.
It's the argument from origination, right? أم خلقوا من غير شيء أم هم الخالقون أم خلقوا السماوات والأرض بل لا يوقنون. This is the Quranic argument of origination. When things like this, we see, it could not have originated by itself or by nothingness. You need an originator other than itself to explain its origin. Nothingness.
Is it the thing you know?
To give you an example. If something exists today, like you and I, what's your name?
Boy.
Boy? Yeah. Boy, I am Mansur. Boy, what's your name, brother?
Hussein.
Hussein, Boy, Mansur, and you? Yasin and Hussein and Boy. You and I, we exist. We have prior to us some other existence, our parents, and so on and so forth. And we can go back to the earth, our solar system, and so on. We cannot say at a point in the past there was simply nothing, and then something popped into existence. Because nothing is the absence of anything. Absence of matter, space, time, fluctuation, gravity, quanta, potential, absence of everything. That's nothingness. It's something that is non-existent. It's a concept that we use to understand what is something. The opposite of that. Yeah? Yeah? So this nothing, while it is non-existent, cannot make anything. It doesn't even exist. It doesn't have any energy or power to do anything. It doesn't have the will to do anything. It simply lacks everything. The fact that we exist means something has to be there always, and not nothingness. Always something. In the history past, however past you go, there has to be always something. If this is the case, then there is a problem called infinite regress of causes. You cannot have something being caused by something which was in turn caused by something ad infinitum. If it doesn't stop somewhere as the first cause, you would not be able to explain this. To give you an example, you see this, don't interrupt. You see, if you say, don't interrupt. He is a toxic heckler.
No.
Toxic? See? What did I tell you?
To debate Christians.
What did I tell you? Very toxic heckler. Insulting. No. So, this bag was on my hand. If I want to give it to your hand, I have to do that action, right? For that action to take place, I just simply give it to you. But what if I said, before I give this back to you, this book needs to come from him to me. There are infinite number of people between you and me that this has to go through. It's simple. I have to give it to her and this gentleman. You are very intelligent and very smart individuals like yourselves. Don't have to disagree. I'm saying we're talking about the problem of infinite regress. Giving an illustration in which if there was infinite cause of our existence, of our universe, we would not come at this point today. And an example I'm saying, even the action of the bag going to him, if there are infinite number of people this bag has to pass through, would this bag ever reach his hand? If it goes through an infinite number of people. I'm saying the infinite cause is not rational. It has to be a finite at the end. It has to stop somewhere.
Who said it has to be an infinite cause?
I'm saying infinite cause is impossible.
Okay.
That's what I'm illustrating. So you would agree? Yeah. So thank you. So what I'm saying, if there are infinite number of people in front of me, this bag would never reach your hand, would it? If the universe was caused by someone or something that was in turn caused by something, infinite causes will never come to make that action, last action of creating the universe. Because there are infinite number of things or causes to make that cause, which makes that cause, which make that cause, which make the universe.
The fact that things are happening, you automatically can conclude that.
No, I'm saying the fact that the action took place, it demonstrates the causes are not infinite. That means it ends somewhere. We say this is the first cause. You've heard of the first cause argument? It's just another way of using it. So there is a first ever cause. Prior to this, there is no other cause necessary. Because what we call is the necessary explanation, the necessary reason, the existent, the independent necessary.
I have to translate it in Dutch, by the way, but how can you conceptualize necessary? It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's the only necessary thing.
Yeah.
But how can you conceptualize a necessary being? How do you know?
It has to be necessary. Everything else is not necessary. And because they're not necessary, look, you could have been created as a woman, right? You could have been created as a man from Pakistan or India or Indonesia or somewhere else, right? You could have been created.
But the only thing we...
Do you understand?
Yeah.
You are not necessary to be in the way you are.
Yeah, sure.
Because of all of these things that we see, we call them contingent. They don't have to be necessarily like that. They could be otherwise.
Why does it have to be? Why does it have to be an opposite? Because everything has an opposite. That's why.
No. What I'm saying is, everything that you see is not something that necessarily has to be like that.
No.
So, because everything is not necessary.
You automatically conclude this, that if everything is contingent, there has to be.
Now you tell me, if everything is contingent, how do you explain the set of all contingent things?
I agree.
Then it has to rely on something that is not contingent. So that's why we talk about the independence, the aseity, the sovereignty, the self-sufficiency of our Creator, who is not dependent on anything. He is the one from which all cause and effect comes through, and he is not someone who is caused. There is no prior explanation necessary for him. He is the necessary cause for everything. That is something that makes sense intellectually and rationally. So when we talk about, the reality of things, there are various ways we can be sure that the concept of a necessary existence who is self-sufficient and one makes sense. You cannot have two self-sufficient independent cause or creators. You cannot have two of them. Do you agree or disagree?
Yeah, I tried to translate because we don't actually really have a word in Dutch that's equivalent to maybe necessary. That's why I asked, can you conceptualize?
Has to be.
Yeah, of course.
So,
To
give you an example of how independent and self-sufficient beings will have conflict of will. They will have a conflict of will. So if you have a car, do you drive? Do you drive? Right. His car has two steering wheels, two gears, gas and everything, accelerator and so on, brakes. Now, is it Hussein? Hussein wants to take the car this way. Boy wants to take the car after having learned how to drive that way. Which way is the car going to go? You have a conflict of will. You have a conflict. Because if both of you are independent drivers, you say, I'm not going to listen to you. I have my full control, full autonomy. Autonomy. I am in control. I will take it this way. You're saying, I'm in control. I have full autonomy. I'm going to take this car this way. You'll have a problem. The car is not going to go both ways.
So when you have a conflict, how do you solve it?
This conflict demonstrates you cannot have two autonomous agents, two independent, self-sufficient agents, or gods, or creators. They will be Imagine now, for the sake of argument, just to explain.
X doesn't happen, you can
No, let me give you an example. One god says, I don't like Hussein. Destroy it. Is he able to do that? He's able to do that. He is able to make you disappear from existence because he's all powerful. Because he is in control, he can do that. Imagine, there's another god who is also all powerful. He says, I like Hussein. I want him to live. What's going to happen to Hussein? Is he going to be totally annihilated, destroyed from existence, or is he going to keep on living? Conflict of will. Possibility is not going to happen. Either you are totally destroyed, but that means the one God who is supposedly all-powerful is not God anymore because he failed to keep you living. Do you follow this argument?
Yeah, I follow, but you do not. That was not a question.
What was your question?
Yeah, I agree. My question was, just because you don't see X, can you automatically do Y?
No, we're not doing this X and Y argument.
Because it's impossible that there are two most powerful things, or like you said, infinite Rigas, because we don't.
No, I'm saying you observe the universe, and the universe itself demonstrates to you that there is no two self-sufficient, independent, absolute creators in action. Had there been two, the world would have been in chaos and corruption and ruin. One God would say, as I give an example, I don't like Hussein, I want to destroy him. He's able to do that. But another God says, I like him. It's up to him, right? He wants to make you living. What's going to happen to you? We have possibilities. Either you're destroyed or you are continuing to live. Either way, there can only be one of those creators whose power has been in action. And the other one failed. The one who kept you alive means the one who wanted you to die is not all-powerful, not absolute, not self-sufficient, not independent, not absolute. You cannot have two absolute beings. This is just an example to illustrate. That means, boy, the belief system in which people talk about multiple gods and multiple deities, polytheism, we can disregard it because that cannot be true. Because polytheism is irrational. Believing many gods is irrational. Multiple gods is irrational.
Everything you say after a sentence just happens if you're in the same line.
Did you understand so far?
I understand, yeah.
Good. So the belief that now we want to look as a theist, a believer in a creator, there has to be a concept around in which it tells you there is one absolute creator, one God, one absolute independent self-sufficient, someone who is totally unique and different from all the other creation, because creation by definition is limited and finite and dependent and so on. Has to be totally different. And guess what? We have some religion which claims that, and this is Islam. Islam says, in a summary, in chapter 112 of the Quran, called Surah Al-Ikhlas, say, He is Allah, the One, the self-sufficient, Master of whom all creatures need. He neither eats nor drinks. He is independent and self-sufficient. He is not begotten. He is not someone who begets. There is nothing co-equal or comparable unto him.
Okay, well, if this was in the Bible, then there you have conflict, right?
How can you make meaning?
Before we go, we need to understand one thing. We now have a scripture, a book from claiming to be God, which you now know it makes sense. That's what I'm expecting the God to be. And it tells you God is one and unique and absolute, independent, self-sufficient. He is not born. He doesn't produce children and someone like him anymore. And it is unlike anything. No co-equals, no comparison, no likenesses. Do you follow so far?
Yeah, I do.
Right. So this is something that we need to take seriously, because now we know, having accepted that there is a creator, and this book seems to be in line with my understanding, my heart and my mind is in line with it. So this has given me enough reason to look further into this belief system. Bible, you said. What does the Bible say about God? Let's scrutinize, like you'd scrutinize what the Quran says about God. Let me give you an example from the Bible.
Wat is nou precies de vraag eigenlijk?
En die een bericht zien van. Maar ik zeg van ja, als dat bijvoorbeeld in de Bijbel zou staan, dan heb je nog steeds een conflict. Dan ga je dan soort van. Dan is zo'n conflict als dat staat. Nee, kijk bijvoorbeeld. I will say it in English.
Yeah. Or Dutch, and you can translate.
Yeah. So in the Quran, it says Allah is the absolute.
You say it in Dutch and then you translate back.
In de Quran staat Allah is maar als je dat bijvoorbeeld in de Bijbel ook staat, want we hadden eerst ervoor hadden conflict.
Is it the problem? Is it conflating if in Surah Al-Ikhlas it says it's one true God, and if the Bible says it too, is it conflating? It's not, because it's in line.
If it's not in line, if the Bible says something different,
if it's in line.
In line, yeah.
If it's in line, you need to know exactly what the Bible is saying. We have to independently, on its own merit, investigate and look into the whole Bible and see what gives the picture. Because to us Muslims, we don't believe the Quran is the first and the last guidance book from God. It's not the first one. We believe God has sent prophets and messengers in the past. Some of those prophets and messengers came to the Jewish people, who recorded their teachings in their scripture. They call it Bible, or the Tanakh, or the Torah, Nabiyim, Ketubim, and so on and so forth. But we also know they also distorted, changed, corrupted that message that was given to them. They changed a lot. So that's why you cannot take that information and say, I can accept that, because this is something that is changed. You have to now find information from God which is giving you an authentic information, unchanged, so you can follow that for your life, for your guidance. An example, I was looking at the sky and I couldn't see a rainbow. But rainbow sometimes appears in the sky. Do you know why rainbows are there, according to the Bible?
No.
Right. So at one point, God destroyed humankind. This is the biblical account. And then he made a covenant with the people who survived. Noah and his family, some people of his family and his followers. And he says, from now on, I am not going to destroy whole of mankind altogether. Okay? And I make this contract with you. I make a covenant. And a sign of this covenant is I'm going to put a rainbow in the clouds. So next time in the future, when I am about to destroy mankind again wholesale, and I look at the clouds and I see the rainbow, I will remember my covenant. So then he will say, and I'll stop destroying mankind. Now ask yourself, God needs to be reminded by a rainbow of a contract that he made some point in the past. That doesn't sound like God is self-sufficient in his knowledge and perfect in his knowledge, absolute in his knowledge. It's a deficient God. That's why we have to say this information that's in the Bible is not from God. Because you would expect God to describe himself to be all knowledgeable. An absolute being is not acquiring knowledge from anyone else because he's independent. The knowledge that he has is perfect, self-sufficient, perfect knowledge. So the biblical point here, the Judeo-Christian Bible fails us to accept a God described in the Bible. It doesn't make sense. So this is how you can filter this information, and you can say, look, any monotheistic religion that believes in one God, when we examine the religion, their books, their prophets, we can arrive at a conclusion which one is indeed from this God that I know exists as an absolute God. So when we look at the Quran, you will find that you would not be able to disagree with the teachings of the Quran brought by Prophet Muhammad ﷺ about God, about your purpose of life, about what's going to happen to you. This is, all of it will be in sync with you. Your desires may go against you, but your rational mind and faculty will struggle to reject this message. You might say, I'm a vegetarian and the Quran says you can eat meat. You can struggle, but the fact that you have teeth, which are canine, you have enzyme in your stomach to digest proteins, you know that you are made to be something that can eat
It's not
animals.
the main argument.
No, it's not. No, what I'm saying is, I'm saying you are also a proof against you to be a vegetarian by nature. You're not. So your desires may be that I want to not eat any animals because I'm so compassionate and so on and so forth. So the conflict can be there, you and your emotions. You might say, I don't want to go and fight. You could be emotional. I don't want to go and fight anyone. But the Quran says, look, why would you not fight when they come and they want to totally annihilate you from existence? They come and oppress you and they want to kill you and your family and drive the messenger out. Would you not fight those people? A rational individual will say, we need to stand up to this oppression. If you're not able to, well, get someone else who can help you with this, being strong, courage, moral courage, and so on and so forth. So, but it doesn't mean that fighting is wrong. When, say, this country is invaded by your country, do you think the English people will sit there with flowers? Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Of course.
They will resist and fight. Because you're not coming with the intention to bring love and kisses. You might be just destroying all of it because you don't like the English culture, for example. You say, no, we're going to destroy all of the English culture and we're going to put our Danish culture in here. English people they ought to defend themselves. Not Danish. Where are you from?
Netherlands.
Netherlands.
Dutch.
Apologies. Right. So you see what the problem is? The English people would try, not in English, even the Scottish and the Irish and so on, they'll try to unite to defend from being annihilated of their life, of their honor, of their dignity, of their culture, and so on and so forth, right?
But the wild wolves having the same thing, united together in front of him.
Yeah. So we see that certain times our desires can come into play to conflict with the Quran. But if you look at the Quranic message, the message it gives you about your life and the guidance of your life, you would not be able to disagree with it intellectually, rationally. So that's why the Quran says, submit and surrender your will willingly and sincerely to Islam. So God wants you to become a Muslim by submission and surrender, not by force or coercion, not by compelling someone, but willingly, through knowledge and understanding, accepting. So that is why we say Islam is the only choice for you, boy, the only choice. If you think that you came in Speaker's Corner with your friends and now someone else is trying to make you Muslim, I'm only telling you that is the purpose of our life, to be submitting and surrendering to God. We were not created by God in jest and mere play. You might be here to have fun. When you die, your friends are not going to help you to stop you from dying. When death comes, that's it. No matter my mother, my father, my friends, my community, they try, my doctor, when my appointed time comes of death, that's it. No one can stop death. So if I have a purpose...
Specifieke vraag die je hebt? Je merkt dat het niet echt een dialoog wordt, maar meer een monoloog.
Ja, het is ook wel... like from all the religions, it's the Quran hoe zeg je dat, de normenwaarden wel het meest ontwikkeld qua like from the Quran values goes the most for me, like in life, but it's like what you're saying, like surrender for the Quran. It's for a non-believer heart. It's
Surrendering means to say, look,
submit. I mean to submit.
yeah. Say, look, I know this is the truth, and I will accept it and apply it to my life. For example, when you go to a university or a college or a school, you know that you are enrolled, and you accept that I am actually going to have to study to get a degree out of it.
Yeah.
If I don't accept that, and I then don't go sit my exams, I'm never going to get a certificate. This acknowledgement is important. When you acknowledge that you are a creation of your creator, you need to fulfill the purpose of your creation. Why you were created for? Because the creator did not create... Did we create those cameras for nothing? There is a reason and a purpose. Our creator created us for a reason, for a purpose. We need to fulfill that purpose. The Quran tells us what the purpose is and how to fulfill it. All we have to do is simply accept it with choice and apply it to our life. In that way, then we know that we are fulfilling our purpose, and when we die and we are resurrected again, brought back like again, in the hereafter, in heaven, is where we will go through the justice and mercy of God and His grace of God, and we will be saved from the punishment of hellfire.
What would be a first step, an easy step to make? Because now we're taking a lot of steps.
The first and easy step is to acknowledge that the Quran is the scripture from God and Prophet Muhammad is from God as a messenger. So you acknowledge and submit that there is no God worthy of worship.
What's the step before that? Let's say the face is in, right?
First step is to reject that nothing is worthy of worship. Nothing. No tree, no camera, no human being, no girlfriend or wife. They're not worthy of worship. Only God is worthy of worship, who is one and only. Yeah? First step. That God is self-sufficient, independent, absolute. And then accepting that the way to worship this God is by accepting Prophet Muhammad as his messenger, who told us how to worship. That's the next step. By accepting him as a guide, as a prophet who tells us how to conduct our life, how to operate our life, how indeed to worship our God, that we said nothing is worthy of worship except God. The messenger tells us exactly how to. Because if I told you, like, okay, I believe in God, but I'm going to worship in my way. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to eat just chocolate every day. 5 chocolates in the morning, 5 in the afternoon, and 5 at night. And that's my worship. And that's my worship. Do you think that is acceptable to God?
He's eating chocolate 3 times a day.
Subhanallah.
Okay,
Did you see my argument? We cannot make what is the purpose of our life ourselves.
Sorry?
God has to tell us.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, like I have a question about so the purpose for everybody is the same for the Quran, or
Everyone has one purpose: to worship none but God. Yeah.
The worship point, it is the same. But from the life point of I am mother, I have this duty to do.
Duties
Please,
different.
da'iyah.
Yes.
Yeah, but from inside, yes, it's the same.
Correct. Lots of different roles and responsibilities and duties.
so throughout life you just worship Allah.
Yeah, and
That's
worship
one
is
purpose.
not something that, to give you an example, am I speaking to you and inviting you to Islam? That is considered to be worship. When I smile at my brother, how are you, my brother? That's worship. Removing a thorn, something that will hurt me when I'm walking, is worship.
Everything good.
Yeah, anything that is in line with God and His Messenger, of course, as explained, and God is accept that I'm happy with, it's worship. So our whole life, if we live our life according to how we should live our life, that is our worship. So what I'm asking, look, if you accept that there is no one worthy of worship, you already accepted the first part of becoming a Muslim, that only God is worshipped.
What is it? Because it doesn't matter how many intellectual arguments you give.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's emotion. Right?
Correct.
So if you give 2,000 more arguments, people might say, what would be a first step to open your spiritual heart and, let's say, relieve the cognitive dissonance of people?
So
Because you can give arguments.
So for boy, for example, he is already sincere. He's already sincere, and boy already accepts and acknowledges there is a creator alone worthy of worship, because there cannot be two gods.
I don't know, did you ask?
Yeah. So he's already accepted the first part of becoming a Muslim. In his heart, he believes there is no God except God to be worshipped. The second part is his next step is to accept Prophet Muhammad as the messenger. So you have to now confirm, can this man, Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam, can he be Prophet of God or not? So you look at what he has brought, his life and his teaching, and then say, this demonstrates to me that he has to be a Prophet and messenger of God. If you look at his life, he is known to be truthful, trustworthy, a sadiq al-amin, someone who is truthful and trustworthy all his life. So he had no reason. This can be soon a heckler talking about Mansur.
Mansur, I have downloaded. I've got the medicine.
What did I tell you?
You have.
Second bullseye, right?
Right.
Right. So ignore the hecklers, because they try always to interrupt our conversation. Always. So the next step is looking at Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his life. If we look at his life, we see for 40 years of his life. 40 years. Can you come on this side? Thank you. Right. For 40 years of his life, he was known to be someone so truthful and trustworthy. He never lied. He was always people, even the people of his and the community.
I read the first part in the Quran. It stands in there, right?
Second?
The first part in the Quran, it gives like history from how it started. That part I read.
So the Quran. Let's talk about the Quran. The Quran. Can you come on this side? Thank you. Can you make a wall in front of him? Thank you. Just make a wall in front of him and then push back a little bit.
How to make a wall against the sound?
Yeah.
Why are they afraid?
They know that people are hearing about Islam.
Yes,
They want to prevent it. They want to prevent it. Why? Why don't they speak up themselves on their ladders and have their own conversation to convince whatever they want to make people convinced of? Yeah? That's the problem with certain Christians here. They have nothing to convince of their own religion, knowing that they want to interrupt other people from accepting Islam. Unfortunately, that's the reality. In the Quran offers certain falsification tests. One of them is how to make it false.
No, I asked him.
Do you,
Falsification test.
Is dat wat we meer gewoon feiten waren? Maar
Nee.
Mansur, de
Dat wordt
liar.
een uitdaging.
Where is the
Om dat uit te
Quran?
dagen. Snap je? Als je dat bewijst, dan is het goed. Dan heb je gelijk. Snap je? Die test wordt gegeven uit God.
That there is a Quran.
is dat ook met
Islamic
you
awareness.
understand?
Is that the same with Mohammed?
Denies. That
You can
there
also
is a
falsify
Quran.
or accept him by applying a test. For example,
Mansur,
Hussein says, I'm the king of
the
England.
liar.
Can
I
we
have got
disprove
all
it?
this
We
from
can.
Islamic
We can,
awareness.
by using certain tests.
So you're testing him.
So you can test whether he's a prophet of God or not. You can test whether Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam was a prophet of God or not. You can test and disprove or prove it to be the case. Likewise, you can prove the Quran is from God or disprove it's not from God. Yeah? So we know the Quran makes certain tests that you can apply to it, and if it fails on that test, then you would say it cannot be from God. To give you some of those examples, one of the examples, Quran says this is such a book that no one can make even a single chapter like it. Chapter like it. No one can make a surah like it.
Where does it say
A chapter.
that the Quran exists?
There are 112 surah or chapters in the Quran. The one I showed you earlier was one surah
the liar.
with 3 ayat, about 3 lines.
There is no Quran.
No one can make something like it in a linguistic stylistics in the language of Arabic.
Where is
Because the
Quran?
composition is such that
Where is
it is impossible to imitate its style.
Where is
Every other human creation, like if you write poetries or music, someone else can imitate it. But the Quran is such that it is demonstrated objectively that you cannot imitate it. The Arabs at that time were the best poets at their time.
Quran does not exist.
They failed. In subsequent times in history, even today, people are failing to imitate anything like this Quran in any chapter, let alone the whole book. They are trying and failing. Why is the question? The Quran says it's from God and you can't imitate it.
Mansur,
The Quran also offers another falsification test. It says,
where
look,
is the Quran?
if this book was any other
Where is the
than
Quran?
God, you would find
Mansur,
in it many
where is the
contradictions
Quran?
and discrepancies, inconsistencies
Where
and
is
errors.
the Uthmanic Quran?
If a book claims to be from God, you would expect it to make some mistakes of history, some mistakes of the future, which is not yet, and it talks about it. You would expect it to make some mistakes of science. Isn't it? That's what the Quran is saying. If it's not from God, you would surely, certainly find mistakes and errors within it. People are trying. They can't find a mistake, an error, inconsistency or a contradiction in the Quran. If they did, and no Muslims were able to demonstrate otherwise, they have all the right and justification to say the Quran is not from God. Because the Quran makes that own argument. So
There is no Quran.
So that's what I'm saying. This is a proof that the Quran offers falsification.
Show
Right?
us the Quran.
That if this was the case, you should be able to falsify it.
Show
In fact,
us
falsify,
the
you can
Quran.
disprove it.
Allah
Show
gave
us
multiple
the
tests
Quran.
to show its
Show us
Exactly.
the
Point,
Quran.
exactly the point. Because people can claim, anyone can claim. He can come at the book and say, God has written it to me. Give all your money and your phone and your wallet. Anyone can claim. So you have to somehow test it. The way you test it is, what does it say about God? What does it say about this law? Does it make an error? Does it make contradictions and mistakes and so on? When you find that the Quran is free from all of that, you will have to submit intellectually, rationally and say, I accept this book is from God. So this is what we are asking. You've got two friends, Hussein and Yassin, who can help you further if you need to clarify any questions that you have. But so far, if you've heard, if I told you this is the case, would you even doubt that this Quran is from God?
Where?
So you should have no reason not to accept it. Your heart should be open to accept and say, yes, I am ready to accept Islam. I'm ready to become a
There is
Muslim.
no Quran.
Yeah, but
Anywhere.
it's hard for non-believers. But like most people grow up with Quran, so it's like normal for them. But for people, for person who come from a non-believer family, it's weird. It's weird to believe in like an upper person, even knowing like the Quran is the one and true and only, like with truth and without testings. It's hard. It's hard.
It's hard, but we need to accept the truth when we find it. That's what I'm asking.
It's not a blind faith. It's not a blind.
It's accepting, knowing the truth and accepting it. So if you lost your mother, for example, no, I don't want to bullseye on that one. If you lost your mother and then you discovered her and you have proven to her that's your mother, you're not going to wait and say, let me see what she does, how she cooks, and you're going to accept her with open arms. You're my mother. When you recognize the truth, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is the prophet and messenger. The Quran is a book from God. you embrace this truth.
Only 3 minutes
And
from
then what
that
for
day.
him, people like
If
him,
Mansur
who
is
look
talking
for,
about
who search,
Islam,
and then convert,
give me
it will be more
only 3
than my
minutes
son.
from that
born
day,
with religion.
and I will
So
show
the
you the
reward for you
lie
will be better.
of Mansur.
Because you are being critically
That's the
thinking, searching,
Not by
Only
God.
3
and
minutes
concluding
of
with
whatever
conviction.
Mansur
So your
is
faith
saying.
will be firm, solid, and grounded. No individual like him shouting at the back will shake it.
Yeah, thank you. We will continue right now, but thank you for
All the best.
listening.
Take care.
Yes.
Do you have anything in
I
his
already,
language?
I already have this one.
Okay.
Give to somebody else. You start dawah from today.
It's all right. So it's a pleasure speaking to you, boy.
Yeah, you
Okay. I wish that you continue this search because we don't know when we're going to die. You and I can die the next minute.
Mansur!
What is important for our fulfilling the purpose of life, God says, there's few things we have to do. Not only acknowledge the truth, but also declare it with our tongue. Make a testimony and start manifest. No. Believing the heart, declaration of the tongue, and doing the actions with our limbs. In that case, then we are in the eyes of God a believer. Until we do that, we're like a searcher. God wants us to be a believer and die on the state of a believer. So I want you to really take your time without doing like, oh, let me leave it for another year or when I'm older. Because you don't know when you're going to die. Before death comes to us, which you have no guarantee when, you need to submit and surrender to this God by making that declaration and submitting with your limbs. That is so important because even Satan knows the Creator, but he doesn't submit. That's why he would not have fulfilled his purpose in this life. You and I don't only have to believe in our hearts, it is not sufficient. Declaration of the tongue is important. We become a Muslim, people know, and then within the faith community, we start practicing with our limbs, demonstrating that I am submitting to God. Imagine you work for a company, and you go to your work, and you sit there, do nothing. You say, yeah, I know you're my boss. I'm going to sit there. I'm going to play on my phone. No, you have to show the actions to get the reward at the end of the day. God says you have to believe, declare, and do the actions if you really want to be saved from the hellfire. He doesn't want anything more. He says it's so easy, and He will guide you constantly. If you take one step to God, God will take 10 steps to guide you. If you come to God one hand span, God will come to you an arm span. If you go toward walking, He will come to you running. A metaphorical way telling you, once you're sincere and you're seeking, God will guide you even more clearly and so on. So I encourage you to take that step. If you come back again, I want to see you as a Muslim, inshallah. Take care.
By the way, it's not about born as a Muslim. We are born as a Muslim, but at some time we have to question our belief. So our belief is not a blind place. We ask and search when we are young. And search and found that Islam is the most reliable religion that we can understand and believe in it. So it's not different.
It's easier to like when you're born with it, but I get it. Like you come to an age when you need to find you need to
exactly.
research.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone in the universe will have the same moment as you.
Thank you.
Take care. Okay. All the best. Please. You have to act as an ambassador of Islam in your life, in your actions. If he sees you acting in a way that doesn't appeal to him to be a Muslim, he's not going to become
fasting for the last 5 days every Ramadan.
all the best. I am not doubting, but I'm saying it's important to remember this.
Psychological thing is something else.
You will be okay, inshallah.
Leave him.
Defend the Quran.
Yeah, it's